Hey everybody, welcome to Geeky Dads, talking about geeky things. I'm JJ Johnson, and joining me tonight is Ted Atchley. Ted, welcome to the show, dude.
Hey, great to be here, JJ.
All right, so Ted, tonight you and I are going to be talking about one of our favorite things that we've been doing watching over the past few weeks, and that is Bad Batch Season 2, man.
Yes,
I am so excited. All right,
yes.
all right, now I love some of the stuff that Disney has been doing with what they've been putting out on Disney Plus. Um, I actually rank, obviously my top favorite one I think is Andor right now,
Yeah,
and then I think I got to put Bad Batch right there at number two. I would even put it slightly ahead of the Mandalorian. I
I,
know
I
that's
would
like
I would as well.
I think I know that's cursing for some people, but I love what they're doing with this with the world building in both Andor and they're starting to bring that into the Mandalorian as well. They're starting to bring
Big
some of
time.
that world building into the Mandalorian, which I absolutely love. So tonight we're just gonna, folks. There will be spoilers on this. All right, make no mistake, there will be spoilers. So if you have not watched Bad Batch season 2, don't listen. Or if you don't care about spoilers, which I don't really care about spoilers sometimes, unless it's a good book, then keep on listening, folks, because we're going to dive deep into the Bad Batch season 2. All right, so let's just do this real quick before we kind of get into the story arc of the Bad Batch, because here's the deal. Number one, these episodes are kind of set up where they're very episodic. They're sort of standalone episodes in a way, sort of standalone missions, that type of thing. But there's this overarching arc that is going through the entire season. So the best way to do this is, let's just break it down. Let's talk about our three favorite episodes, and then we're going to get into the major story arc. And I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on what is going on, especially the very, very last scene.
Yes. I know
I
exactly what you're talking about.
I sat there, my boys hadn't seen it yet. We watched it just now, and they're just like, what?
Yeah.
Blown away. All right,
Yep.
blown
Yep.
away.
I gotcha.
Reminds me of Empire the Strikes Back moments. All right, so
Yes.
here we
Very much
go.
so.
Let's go over our top three. Why don't you give me your top three, and then we'll do my top three. We'll just do your top three and then do my top three. We won't go back and forth. What are your top three?
All right. Well, I got to make an honorable mention for the one that just missed the list here, which was The Crossing. Love the character development between Omega, the female clone, the younger female clone, and Tech, who is like this real techie. He's their technological expert and doesn't really process emotions well, but just love the character development that we saw in that episode. But it didn't quite make the list. That was the last, kind of the last cut.
Mm.
So my number three would have to be Truth and Consequences. And really, you can't talk about Truth and Consequences without talking a little bit about Clone Conspiracy, because it's kind of a two-parter. But I love when the Bad Batch kind of connects to the wider galaxy story that's going on right now. And really this one really ties into all of the different themes that it had going on. That idea of what happens when you fulfilled your purpose. The clones have fulfilled their purpose. So where do they kind of go from here? And it was also interesting. I don't know if you noticed, but throughout this season, there were so many callbacks in each episode. Like an episode was like, there were a lot of Raiders of the Lost Ark callbacks. This episode, there were a lot of like Alien callbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular episode had a lot of callbacks to a movie that you may be familiar with called All the President's Men.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even having one character go, follow the money. I mean, like to that level of detail. So, and then
Yeah.
we go back.
I mean, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, we kind of start out back in the bar there, Club 79, where the conspiracy arc from the Clone Wars kind of happened, where they uncovered Order 66. He had fives, and he uncovered Order 66, and then that kind of led to Ahsoka being able to help Rex toward the end of season 7 there, and we kind of start there with this other conspiracy, and it was just so cool to kind of go back to Club 79 again. And I actually think the assassin that we see in that episode, and maybe we'll get into this a little bit later, but I think that assassin's a big bit of foreshadowing for something that'll happen later on. But but it was so cool, like seeing Tierna Palmo, the senator from Terrace. She shows up later on in Rogue One. She's one of the rebel leaders there. And it was really nice to like see these clones. They're like really conflicted over this idea, like what Cody says in Solitary Clone, which another episode that I like. How do I cut that? But where they're kind of coming to grips with what they did at the end of season 1, and so it was very cool to see them kind of wrestling with that. But I also in this episode we kind of start seeing that idea of institutions versus individuals. Like the Empire is much more interested in institutions, the banking clan, the Commerce Guild, and you also see this use of this insurgents, like this. It's just a catch-all for the disenfranchised, which is mainly the Outer Rim, which I don't care what the government is. The Outer Rim's always full of the disenfranchised. And the Empire needs enemies. It needs a big bad out there. It needs fear. It's the dark side, so it runs on fear. And it's that idea. I can't remember who said it, but the government that offers you security in exchange for freedom will give you neither, and that's the Empire.
Right.
And it was really just the coolest thing about this episode was this is the Bad Batch at their peak. They're doing the covert op. They're getting into the Star Destroyer. They're getting the data. And then they bring it in. It's like, we did it. We delivered the evidence, because they're trying to show that the Empire actually destroyed Kamino at the end of season 1. And then there's Palpatine. Yes. And he rises up, and he's always one step ahead. And he turns their victory, he flips their victory right around to defeat. And I also love how it shows Rampart, like he's just a cog in the machine. Like I thought he was the villain, but it just shows that no one is irreplaceable or essential except for the Empire. Not the clones, not Rampart. And I think this also shows you how people start to lose faith in the Senate. And then we see by the time we get to Andor kind of how that, the Senate's basically not functional at that point at Andor.
Yeah. One of the things, because this Truth and Consequences is actually on my list as well. And what I love about this is you're starting to get this sort of like, callbacks to sort of the concentration type camps in a way where they're like, we're going to just dispose of the clones. And there's people over here to the side. They're like, wait a minute, clones should have rights. And there's others over here saying, no, clones are the property of the Empire, and we should be able to do with them whatever we please. And there's this deep moral, ethical kind of dilemma that you're faced with, where you don't really see what's going on, but they're trying to prove a point that yes, the Empire did destroy everything. And then all of a sudden, like you said, Palpatine raises up. When Palpatine came into the Senate hearing, I just got goosebumps. I was like, oh my gosh. And who was it? Was it Rampart? Is that?
Yeah. Vice Admiral Rampart.
Yes. Okay. So Vice Admiral Rampart, we've been sitting there, like you said, thinking he's this big bad villain. He's taken into custody right there. I mean, he's done. And the problem is he didn't do anything. He just followed his orders. But the moment that Palpatine realized that there's sympathy for the clones and that they had delivered the plans, he twisted on its head in his favor to create what we all know as the Stormtrooper Army, the Empire Stormtrooper Army, and we see how that's created. I also do want to point out that episode had a ton of callbacks to one particular novel that is phenomenal in my opinion, and that is, of course, Thrawn.
Yes.
By Timothy Zahn. This trilogy is unbelievable. This is the new Thrawn trilogy. I still prefer the original, but I love the Essential Legends collection. But this one right here, there is so much going on that kind of works at the same time in conjunction with some things in Rebels as well. So if you haven't read Thrawn, but you've seen Rebels and you've seen The Bad Batch, you need to go read book 1 in this new Thrawn trilogy. I highly recommend it.
I would second that recommendation strongly.
Okay, so you that was 2. What was your third one?
So the next one that I had, which also kind of goes in with a lot of the things that you were talking about, was The Outpost. So there were only a couple of Crosshair episodes this season, but my goodness, they were some of the very best. And you've got Crosshair, who, I mean, he broke from the Bad Batch to be loyal to the Empire. They left him stranded on Kamino for a month, and he's still loyal to the Empire. And that first episode with him in the Solitary Clone, he stays loyal to the Empire. And then you see this, you see him in this episode kind of finally reach that breaking point. So in this episode, he's sent off to this ice world of Barton 4 to retrieve some stolen cargo. And it's that idea again that everyone is expendable, and Crosshair is finally going to see it. So it's also this idea again of insurgents, like those families on Desix in the Solitary Clone, those were insurgents. Like it's just this catch-all term they use. But you meet this guy, and he may be the worst Imperial officer that I've seen, although I don't know, there's quite a few good candidates for there. But this Lieutenant Nolan, who is just this, he's fresh out of the academy, and he's never led a mission, but he's just an absolute jerk, and he can't stand the clones. Like you were saying, like he treats them like property, even calls them used equipment. Yeah. And there was actually in the Clone Wars show, there was a Jedi named Pon Krell who had a similar disdain for clones, actually had the clones fighting each other, which is just crazy. And you kind of see this again, when we get into the Obi-Wan show, you see kind of all this, because you see that clone and he's basically begging, he's down on his luck. He's like, give me a little bit of money. You kind of see that, but I think what this episode really got to is Crosshair's core fear, in that he stays loyal to the Empire. And that's always what I was wondering in Solitary Clone, like, dude, what's wrong with you? Why are you staying loyal? And I think it's because he doesn't know how to be anything other than a soldier and an assassin. Like, if you think about it, like Crosshair's the only member of the Bad Batch whose genetic enhancements are only useful in wartime, only useful in fighting. Like, he's a sniper. He's a really, really good shot, right? Like Wrecker's strength, that has uses outside, and Hunter's tracking. So they all, technical ability, they all have that ability outside of war, but really Crosshair's ability doesn't go beyond that. So, and even after the attack, the insurgents attacked the base, and Nolan's actually more concerned about stolen equipment than the clones who perished. And I just love, so the base is commanded by this new clone. He's a reg, and his name is Mayday. And I just love, Mayday was so cool. And there's all these great moments with Mayday and Crosshair, and Mayday's actually able to get to Crosshair, because I think Mayday's sort of a mirror to Crosshair. He was left on Barton 4 just almost as long as Crosshair was left on Kamino. And, Crosshair doesn't want to get close to him. And there's this whole metaphor about dead weight in the episode. And I think that's really talking about how Crosshair views relationships. And Mayfield finally gets Crosshair to talk about Clone Force 99 just a little bit. I mean, just, and then they had that moment where they're disarming the mine, and Crosshair's the sniper. He's always kind of back, and now he's having to put his life in this man's hands. And I love the moment, like he disarms the mine, but he's not sure. And he's like, yeah, I think that worked, but I'm going to go around the corner here. If I don't hear a boom, I'll know you're okay. I just love that moment. But it was showing, like, he's like, we have to improvise because they weren't getting the equipment that they need. And it's showing all these clones are having to adapt. And that's what Crosshair doesn't want to adapt. I mean, the rest of Clone Force 99 is adapting, but Crosshair doesn't want to adapt. He wants to stay a soldier. And I love after, so they go and they attack the insurgent base, and they find this cargo that they've been protecting this whole time is armor for the new human the TK troopers, the basically the prototype stormtrooper. And I love the twist that Mayfield puts on. He's like, we were good soldiers. We followed orders. That good soldiers follow orders kind of mantra, and I finally, Crosshair starts to wake up. Like, he used to get family from being a soldier. He used to get gratitude. He used to get sense of purpose and meaning. And now he sees the way that Nolan's treating him, and and just as he's processing is that the avalanche comes down and, it buries him, and Crosshair stops killing for a moment and tries to save a life, which I thought was a really neat turn for him. And then, they just trudge back to the base, and Nolan's there, and Nolan doesn't even order a medic for Mayday and just lets him die. And that's it. Crosshair breaks. And I've never been so happy to see a character kill another character. Like, out of all the times Crosshair's killed somebody, I'm like, but this time I was like, yeah, that dude deserved it.
Yeah.
And it made me think about something that happened in our own history in the Vietnam War, which was called fragging, where, again, you had these officers who were fresh out of the academy and had never seen combat, and they would come in and just be absolute jerks and, lord their power over these, NCOs who had been fighting for months or years. And these guys ended up getting, like, their own soldiers would, like, roll a frag grenade in and kill them. Like, it was called fragging. And I mean, it was just a really dark time, but it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with that episode, when he actually took him out there at the end, I was excited because this entire time they're basically protecting Stormtrooper, and it just shows the disregard that the Empire not only had. Well, two things. It shows the disregard the Empire has for the clones very well. But two, it also shows exactly how ill-equipped the Empire really is. And Crosshair does come back. I mean, we see him in the last two episodes. Well, the second to last episode, the summit, for very, very good. And he isn't breaking. I mean, he is holding up under pressure. And, but there's still that sliver of doubt. Where are we left with Crosshair? Because when we last saw Crosshair, he was just lying there, and Omega is coming in, talking to him, and what's her face comes in and says, he's
Amy Carr.
Yeah, she comes in and then she looks at Omega and pretty much, says, Omega, you'll trust them, but you won't trust me. I'm your sister. And that right there blew my mind. But here's another thing about Crosshair, because I want to get into the solitary clone, because that's the other one on my list.
Okay.
Crosshair knows what the Empire did. He was there. He was there when the order was given.
Yeah, they bombed Camino with him. He was in Tapoca City as they're bombing it.
Right. And so it's like, if anybody has any excuse or justification to turn against the Empire, it is Crosshair. But he is so reluctant because, like you said, even though Hunter and Wrecker and Tech and Echo, they're all struggling, life outside of being a soldier, and they're doing all these missions for Sid. And by the way, I always knew Sid was going to stab them in the back. I always knew it.
They heavily, I would say they almost too heavily foreshadowed that. Like, I've been surprised if she didn't.
Yeah, and when it showed up there in that last episode, and they're in Sid, I was like, she is going to turn on them. And then her behavior, and you're just like, yep, she's.
And then she tries to act so sad about it, like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
tries to pull that Lando. I had no choice. Well, at least with Lando, I mean, it was like they showed up. I mean, they were there, and it was Vader, and it was a little different situation. But getting on the solitary clone, he goes on this mission with Cody, and this is where I think Cody, and I love Cody, but Cody is starting to like make these little statements.
And that scene with him and Cody fighting together to get up to the top of that tower was so well done, and how they had each other's back. And then Cody makes that comment right there at the end. He's like, he starts to question, whether the Empire is really doing good around the galaxy. And it's just like the questions are there. And so I think that they've done a phenomenal job with these small episodes of basically sowing these seeds of doubt. Now, my third favorite episode, because we talked about Truth and Consequences, is Solitary Clone, but my third favorite episode, and I had to put it on here, that is The Tribe.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime you give me a Wookiee with a lightsaber who's a Padawan, is a Jedi in training, I am going to totally geek out about that. All right. So this one is just, that's it. I mean, that's the story, And what's interesting is you kind of get these little flashbacks of who he is, and he's a Padawan. He's got a lightsaber. He somehow he survived. But not only that, but the mission is just getting him back to his home world, getting him back to his home. And that's what the mission becomes. And there's really not a whole lot of, I'd say, of the overall story arc in this one, really, as much as it is just, it goes to the heart of who Omega is and how much she cares. And, and Hunter and them, and how much they are adapting to the way she cares, I think is the influence that she is having on them is very evident in this episode. And that's why I put it in there. But I absolutely love it. I thought The Tribe was great. Okay, so those are our three favorite episodes. Now let's get into like this overall story arc, which we've sort of discussed a little bit. But what is your prediction about where they're going to go? Because I have a few thoughts on what I think they're about to head into.
So I think, first of all, I think season 3, if they don't do season 3, we riot. They have to do season 3.
Yeah.
But especially as we got into the last couple episodes, I've come to the conclusion that season 1 was the New Hope season. And this season was the Empire Strikes Back season. I mean, there were so many things. The Lando callback with her, with Sid betraying the Bad Batch. And then, it was almost like the scene with Hemlock taken off with Omega. I mean, it almost looked exactly like when Boba Fett takes off with Han, at the end of Empire Strikes Back. And this had a very Empire Strikes Back kind of feel to it, especially those last 2 episodes. And I think we're going to kind of get a season 3 that's going to be kind of our Return of the Jedi season. But it's just what I think we're seeing here is you're watching the Bad Batch struggle with their place in the universe. That idea of they fulfilled their purpose, but now they're like, who are we as clones? Who are we as soldiers? Hunter's really kind of going into the who are we as parents kind of idea. And then you got Echo kind of asking, and I thought especially, with you bringing up The Tribe, that, Echo was like, see guys, we can do more. And, so what is the price of inaction against tyranny?
Well, and Echo goes off.
Yeah.
He leaves.
He
leaves for probably 3 or 4 episodes. And he goes out to help clones who are struggling, who are in trouble,
right,
and have been taken prisoner. And so, Echo sees this problem. They all see the problem, but Echo's the one that's like, I got to do something. I cannot just stand idly by and watch this. Well, I got to go help my people.
And think about, Echo's history. I mean, he was saved by the Bad Batch. Like he was thought to be lost. And the Techno Union had taken him to Skekko Minor and, almost cyborged him, and they basically did cyborg him. And then it was the Bad Batch and Anakin Skywalker who rescue him from Skekko Minor. So he knows what it's like to need this team, to save him. And like he's like, we could be saving other people, and I think that his history plays into that a huge amount. Plus his relationship with Rex.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that Rex is an interesting character. Here's one thing I do love, and oh man, we had a special guest show up in that second to last episode. Harking all the way back to Clone Wars. You know, do you want to reveal it?
Oh,
I didn't know if you heard me.
Well, no, I'm just trying to think. I'm like, was that the second to last or the last episode? You're talking about
the ones planting the bomb.
You're talking about Saw.
Saw Gerrera.
Saw Gerrera. Yeah. You know what I love about Saw's character, because I hate him, but what I love about him is I've wanted, and Laura McCrary mentioned this on a podcast recently. I can't remember which one it was, but this idea of, you'll hear people say we have to do something,
right?
And that's Saw Gerrera. Saw Gerrera
exactly.
We have to do something, even if that something isn't looking at the long-term goal, even if that something isn't looking at the meta narrative, even if that something is ultimately going to hurt somebody else. Like, we just have to do something. And I love how Saw's character explores that a little bit.
Yeah, he does. And he has okay. And so this is where you get into the parts with Andor and everything going on there. Because you sort of have these little factions starting to rise up, and obviously Saw Gerrera is one of the big ones. Obviously, that's out there that we all know about, and I'd say he's always the extreme example. All right, there's to him that's a casualty of war, and that's just the way it is. Where with the Bad Batch, what are their weapons always set on? Stun.
As long as they're fighting clones, yeah.
As long as they're fighting clones, they're set on stun. Now, in the Summit, they were not set on stun because they weren't fighting clones. They were fighting stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And I noticed that. And I saw the distinction. Now, they
still see the clones as their brothers.
Right. And so I noticed that, and I saw the distinction, but Saul is not the type that would care.
No,
Saul's the type that would honestly go out there. And here's what I like about both Andor and the Bad Batch, and this is where I think Lucasfilm is starting to find their rhythm, and you're starting to see this a little bit in The Mandalorian now. Is they're beginning to take these street level characters who we would just assume are just side characters. And we talked about this in our Andor episode. A lot of these people that we thought were just side characters, they ended up being the heroes. And they are showing through these side characters exactly why everybody in the galaxy hates the Empire so much, and why there's this bitterness starting to build. Yes. Because you just can't go about your day-to-day business and day-to-day life, and then you find out one second, wait a minute, I'm an enemy of the Empire, and they're trying to wait. They're trying to wipe out my entire bloodline or something like that. I mean, and you also see, with Tarkin, you see a lot of dark side with Tarkin, because
you notice he didn't have any clones around him. They were all TK.
He
does not trust the clones.
No, he does not. And I noticed that right away. But he had even with the stormtroopers, when they were on the rail card and they're like, well, we might shoot our own guys. We have our own men out there. He goes, I know. Shoot them down.
Yep.
No regard, because the Empire is going to protect the Empire regardless.
Institutions. Yep.
Exactly. And I think that's true of a lot of governments in history. I think that's exactly accurate. That government exists to protect itself. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I mean, what we're seeing here is not just basic world building. We're seeing world building done on a little bit different level than I think we've seen it, because we're seeing it from the perspective of characters we would never thought about in the past. And we saw hints of it in the first season, but the first season was about them going on the run. This season is just about them surviving. And then you get this overarching story arc of, wait a minute, people want to just eliminate the clones because the clones are they're just property. Like, we can take them out and euthanize them or something.
Yeah. I mean, the clones are like, I mean, Nolan really exemplifies that more than anyone else. They're equipment to him. They're not people, and he doesn't even want them touch. Like, he slips on the ice. He doesn't even want them touching him. Like, he just has such a disdain for them.
I know. And the thing is that, they were so loyal. And
oh yeah.
I mean, the loyalty and the good, like you said a while ago, good soldiers follow orders, and they followed orders. They followed orders. I mean, all these orders that were programmed into them. And I don't know. I think, this is one of those where I think people need to watch. They need to watch Rebels. They need to watch Andor. They need to watch Bad Batch. They need to read the first Thrawn book, because those areas will open up your eyes to so much going on right now in the universe of Star Wars.
And so much that's coming.
Yes, so much that's coming too. And so, obviously the Mandalorian, folks. Okay, I'm not forgetting the Mandalorian, but the Mandalorian set, way past this a little bit. So it's a little bit different time frame. Those others are all sort of set within just that certain period right there together. So we're getting a lot of world building right after Order 66 happened.
Oh yeah.
And everything that happened in episode 3, we're starting to get a lot of world building, and I love it because it's showing the rise of the Empire in a way that we hadn't thought about in the past.
Yeah, we've always wondered, like, how did we go from clones to stormtroopers, and now we're seeing that almost step by step. But
yeah.
If people have any interest in the upcoming Ahsoka series, which is going to be in the same time frame as The Mandalorian, in fact, there was a pretty important cameo in last week's Mandalorian episode that kind of hints towards that, with a certain alien that showed up. But if you want to watch Ahsoka, you're gonna almost need to have watched Rebels, because I think the Ahsoka series is really going to continue the storyline of Rebels. I mean, there's a Rebels character that showed up last week on The Mandalorian in a short cameo. So I think that's what's coming. But now, go ahead.
If Thrawn shows up in Ahsoka, I might start cheering for the Empire, man. All right. Well, I'm just gonna say.
I have a theory about that, but I don't know if we want to sidetrack into that too much. But I actually think Thrawn and Ezra might actually be working together. But
I just finished the second book in the new Thrawn trilogy, and I'm about to start the third one. I have a feeling you might be right on that theory. I haven't read this third one yet, so I'm about to start it here in the next month or so.
Okay, well, I won't spoil it for you, but yeah.
I hope not, because I haven't read it yet. And that would be this one right here, Thrawn Treason. So
yes.
So anyway, okay, so yeah, I agree with you. I think we're going to get a little bit. I know we're kind of getting off the Bad Batch, but that's fine. I mean, it's Star Wars. It's all right here together. And it's,
well, they're all interconnected now, which is so beautiful.
Right, and it's like it's not like a multi-universe. I mean, it is the universe. I mean, there's so much going on with these episodes, and I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh. I remember this back from Rebels. Oh my gosh, I remember this back from the Thrawn book. Oh my gosh, I remember this back from Andor. And so,
you're sitting there like, hey, that guy was in Rogue One. I mean, there's a guy at the summit. Yes. Like, hey, I know him from Rogue One.
Right, exactly. So, it's all happening. It's all coming together. And I like I said, I think Lucasfilm or under Disney is, we had the movies. They are what they are. Everybody has their opinion on them. All right. But I really feel like they're starting to hit their element with what they're doing with these series here.
Absolutely. So you kind of want to talk about the kind of, I was talking about how this is kind of the Empire Strikes Back season. So you want to get into a little bit of the I am your father moment from this season?
Yeah, let's get into a little bit of that. I am your father. Okay, so she comes in. She's been taken. Omega has. And she's on this secret facility where they are doing some research or testing on clones. And hold on, I think that a lot of this is going to tie in with what we had in the Rise of Skywalker. My opinion. All right. You know what I'm talking about with the cloning and things like that, and expanding the research. And because they're at the end, they asked the what's her name?
Nala Se.
Yeah, Nala Se. They asked her, you know what the Emperor wants? And she's like, what he seeks is impossible.
Yes.
And I'm just sitting there going, oh my gosh, I know what he's seeking. I know what he wants.
Yep.
But she goes in there, Crosshair is lying on the table along with all these other clones that are in there. And in walks, God, I'm drawing a blank on all my names tonight. The scientist, the
Emmy Carr.
Yes. Okay. So she walks in and she says, don't you trust me? It's amazing how you'll trust her, but you won't trust me. Omega's like, I don't know you. And she goes, we are sisters. And because Omega is a clone, by the way.
Yes.
And
female clone of Jango Fett.
Right. And now you're sitting here going, well, wait a minute. You're a clone. Here's my question. Does the Empire know she's a clone?
That's an interesting question. I would think Hemlock would know.
I would think so.
Yeah. I just, because if she's a clone, Omega clearly doesn't have the age acceleration, but Emmy Carr would. But I wonder if we're being a little too quick to jump to the clone conclusion.
Right.
I wonder, could Emmy Carr instead be the natural child of Jango Fett?
Oh.
Perhaps even the child of Zam Wessel. Because in the books there was clearly more of a relationship there, which adds this gravitas to him having to kill her in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
But in the comics and stuff, in the books, they've kind of hinted at a relationship there. So I wonder if people are jumping too quickly to the clone conclusion.
You could be onto something, because that's exactly where I went, and I'm like, of course it's fresh on my mind. I haven't given it a lot of thought, but you might be onto something right that. I'd be interested to hear what some of our other Star Wars fans out there think, like John Oddie or some of those out there.
Yes.
Or Jason Joyner, anybody that's watched this, Josh Smith, comment and let us know what you guys think, because I didn't think about that, but you might be right.
I do think if it is revealed that Emmy Carr is a clone, then she's a genetically modified clone. And I wonder if she will end up helping Crosshair and Omega escape. And then as a genetically modified clone, she would fit and perhaps take the place of someone we think we lost in the Bad Batch. So I guess where are you on the hashtag Tech Lives?
It's interesting that he had his goggles there at the end.
Yes.
I was horrified. I'll be honest with you. I knew it was going to happen. It had that moment where it's just like the story demands that somebody die here in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And, you could see that the writers knew that. And I appreciate it. The question is, is there a way out for him where he lives? And my only problem is if you do that, it's got to be explained right.
Yeah.
Because my opinion is he's dead.
Yes.
But I also think that if you bring him back and somehow he miraculously is alive, now if they bring him back as a cyborg or something like that, that's one thing.
Right.
But if you just bring him back and he's being held prisoner, I'm gonna feel like I got an emotional cheat. Personally, I think he's dead. I think if they bring him back, it's got to be in some sort of cybernetic type of character, in a way that's not really him anymore.
And I'll go into a little bit of why I don't think they'll go that route. I just want to take a second to say, Tech was my favorite clone. I was literally like working on a cosplay for Realm Makers Awards night that was going to be a Tech. It was going to be a full on Tech 3D printed cosplay, kind of like what Carrie did with Master Chief. But I just realized I didn't have enough time. That's a year-long project. But anyway, I mean, think about Tech. Tech is smart. Tech is great with computers and tech. He's socially awkward, and he's fiercely loyal to his family or his squad. Let me just say I saw a lot of myself in Tech. And it's like, so when he fell, like that hit me really, really hard. But there's a couple reasons why I think he's dead. And I also don't think they're going to go the cyborg route. I don't think they're going to go the cyborg route because I think that would be too close to what they did with Echo. I don't know if you remember, but Echo was lost at the Citadel, presumed dead in the explosion of the shuttle. And then, of course, we discover that he's actually, on Skeko Minor. He's been cyborged up. He's helping the separatists. And, of course, the Batch goes in there and frees him. So I think to do that again, I know Star Wars is about rhymes and echoes and stuff. Echo.
Yeah.
But I just think it would be too similar to Echo's story. And I really think Echo is the reason why Tech had to die. If you step back, I mean, we're both writers, so you step back and you think about it from a writer perspective for a minute. Echo and Tech are too similar as characters. Their skill sets, how they solve problems, they're just you could tell early on, like, these guys are kind of the same problem solver. So I thought they had solved that when Echo went off with them. Like, okay, so they're gonna take Echo out of the squad by having him go off with Rex, but then he comes back. And so I think because of that, the fact that they're just too similar, I don't think they're gonna bring him back. And then the cyborging would just be too much like Echo's own story. So I don't think they're gonna repeat that.
I kind of had a feeling that something was going to happen because they were really starting to play up him and Omega's relationship there towards the end.
Well, and not only that, but Tech and Fee.
Yes, I was going to say that when they're there. Remind me of the planet, the city.
They're on Pabu.
Yeah, Pabu. Okay,
Space Grease.
Space Grease. That's exactly what it is. I wouldn't mind living there. I'll be honest with you.
No.
But yeah, they've played. She's like, "Aren't you going to say goodbye?" And he's like, "No." But you can tell there's this relationship, and so I'm kind of, I don't know. I mean, it was gut wrenching. I don't think they're going to bring him back in any way.
Yeah, like you said, it would just be
it'd be cheap.
Yeah, cheap. That's the word.
Yeah, and I mean, you just had everybody have this emotional connection, with this character where but you could see it was time. It was necessary for that story to move forward in that moment, and
it makes sense how they've been. You look back at Faster, you look back at all these the Crossing, like they had really been building up. We were spending a lot of time getting to really flesh out his character.
And the last line that he gave, when have we ever followed orders?
Oh, slay me with 6 words, man.
Oh my gosh. And I just sit there and I go, Oh my God. I mean, and that was it. I mean, this was some brilliant, brilliant writing. I think The Bad Batch has been one of the most brilliant written episodes, Andor as well. But Bad Batch, just for the way they're doing it with these little episodes and little missions, and I mean, they are hitting all the right notes, emotionally, connection wise,
Yes.
world building.
Yes.
Standalone adventure series, character building, unbelievable character building, and it's not just the Bad Batch. You got Rex, you got Cody, you got all these, all the individuals on the Empire side too that they're building up outside of just Tarkin.
Hemlock's a great villain.
Oh, the Hemlock is a perfect villain, and and then it's just. You're starting to see that, and that's what I said about these street level characters. When I say that, I'm talking about these characters that you would think nothing of it, but then you get there and you're just like, I want more of this character, and the next thing you know, they're dead. Yeah. And it's not just that they're killing them off just to have somebody to kill off, but every death that has served in this season has served to move the story in the right direction, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And can we just take a moment, because the writing's been amazing. Can we just take a moment to appreciate Kevin Kiner's work on the score? It's
my gosh.
Every single week it was a different genre of music. It was a different mood. I mean, he did Western, he did techno. I mean, he was in his element. It was just an amazing range, and each score, like, it perfectly fit the episode, even though it was radically different from what he had done just the week before. So Kevin Kiner just deserves all kind of kudos for his work on the music. So artistically, from the writing to the music, the animation, I mean, just don't not watch it just because, oh, it's animation, it's the kids thing. Like, Bad Batch is really good.
Yeah, and I know people, and this is what I'm saying. This is where Disney's hitting their sweet spot, and I know a lot of people didn't like Kenobi. Kenobi was popcorn fiction. It was fan service. It was just, we enjoyed it. I loved it, but because I wanted to see it, and I want to see more of Kenobi. But I think what they're doing with Andor, what they're doing with Bad Batch, what they've done with Rebels, all these things with Mandalorian, I think they're hitting their sweet spot. And
I am so excited for Ahsoka, dude.
Oh, I am too.
As a Rebels fan, I'm so excited for what they're going to do with Ahsoka.
I want to see Thrawn, but
he's coming.
I know he is. I know. Thrawn is hands down makes me want to cheer for the Empire. I mean, really. I mean, the guy is such a awesome and amazing character, and you just sit there and you think about his TIE Defender program, and you think about, I mean, had they just followed Thrawn, the Battle of Endor would have been won by the Empire. Right? So,
well, and the whole reason he wasn't at the summit was that summit is happening in 19 BBY, 19 years before what we call Star Wars or A New Hope, and Thrawn's not that, he's still working his way up. The TIE Defender program doesn't start until 2 years before the Battle of Yavin, so it's just too soon for that.
Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, I love this, folks. Go watch The Bad Batch. Go watch Bad Batch season 1, season 2. Watch some Rebels. Watch some Andor, and then go read book 1 of the new Thrawn trilogy. And you will
Timothy Zahn's an amazing writer.
Oh yeah, and he's hitting all the right beats too. I mean, with this new series, and I get it. I'm partial to Heir to the Empire and Dark Force Rising and all the the original trilogy. That's one of my favorites.
Got those right behind me on the shelf.
Right here. So got the box set. My mother-in-law got that for me for Christmas because I had lost my original set.
I don't know if you can see them there. They're right there on that shelf behind me. That's all of them in the originals.
Yeah, I recognize. So then that's what I had. But with college and stuff and moving as a single guy, somehow I lost them. And and I never replaced them.
Oh,
And I kept seeing them on the shelf, the Essential Legends. So, with Christmas rolling around this year, I didn't want people really spending a lot of money on me.
oh yeah.
Big, inflation, stuff like that. And I'm like, look, I don't need anything. And so I told them, I was like, look, I'll put some books out there on
There you go.
Amazon on a wish list, and they're on sale. And if you want to go spend like $30 and go get me a book, I'm cool with that. And she found a really good deal on this and got it for me. And honestly, that's what I tell people. I like, if I want something, I'll go buy it. But
Yeah, that's my problem too. It's like if I want something, I've bought it. So it's like,
if it's my birthday, Christmas, go buy me a book. You will be my best friend for a year.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
So, all right, everybody, we beat this to death. It is exciting to be here. We are going to begin streaming some of these on YouTube via video. This is the first one I have recorded with a new software with video. So if you're listening to the audiobook version, these will be coming out, or not audiobook. If you're listening to the audio version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, wherever you're listening. These will eventually be coming out on YouTube as a stream in streaming, so you can watch us live. And I don't think Ted and I have picked our noses tonight, but if we have, we apologize.
I'll try to dress up a little more next time.
Dude, I came out from working in the garden. And,
there you go.
I'm still a little dirty, man. So I'm cool. It's cool. All right, everybody. This has been Geeky Dads talking about geeky things. I'm JJ. This is Ted, and that is a wrap.